And I think we're just going to
We're going alphabetical order?
We're just going to do these alphabetically. So, Omar, we're going to have you come up first. And I think we've asked for 10-minute presentations and then questions from the board afterwards.
Sure.
And we have
Omar Tarazi. Yeah. By the way, is this microphone too short for it to work? I'm just saying. Do I need to speak
Here, you want a
louder?
hand? Here, we have a hand mic.
You have a hand mic? This is always a problem. They always build them too short.
I think Mike was having the same problem. Omar.
In your email. I don't think we have.
All right.
oh
Caleb, will you
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for inviting me to speak tonight. Just a little bit of background about myself. I was previously elected to City Council Hilliard, board president, and then currently I'm elected fiscal officer for Norwich Township, so I have a lot of background being in your position in terms of how do you operate as an elected person and dealing with board dynamics. And I'm currently actually the school-appointed attorney, or the school attorney appointed for the Southwestern City School District. So I've been, and it's kind of interesting, a lot of the comments and things we've been hearing tonight, it's the same problems everybody, everywhere, all boards are struggling with the same issues. So one of the advantages I would bring would basically that I come with a lot of background in board governance, as well as I've got 15 years of litigation experience, et cetera. So I know a lot of things about a lot of areas to really be able to add a lot of value to this board should choose to select me to work together. Based on my recommendation, I actually sent an email sort of detailing out, I only look for opportunities where I can add a lot of value. And in this particular case, I don't believe, my opinion is that the main value that lawyers provide is being able to give attorney-client privilege, clear advice that may not be what you want to hear, but it's the advice that's from a professional who's heard and seen a lot of things and has a lot of experience and can really help guide a board without necessarily being in the public sphere, because that's the whole point of attorney-client privilege. So what I would recommend, and also knowing what it takes to run a district, there's a whole variety of legal issues that pop up all the time. There's no way, in my opinion, you're going to be able to decide today or in a board meeting, in a public meeting, who's the best attorney out there to handle a civil rights complaint, who's the best attorney to handle a litigation issue, who's the best attorney out there to handle whatever. That takes, and then basically to see who adds value. There's two core models that districts use in that. Essentially, the legal issues that need the day-to-day operation of the district, usually those are just decided by the superintendent. The other model that's often done is the law director model, where basically the board appoints a law director and then the law director divvies up the work of the day-to-day operations, operational kind of issues, because they have the experience to know this lawyer's best for this one's best for that kind of issue. So that can be done with one lawyer, and then there's a lot of firms out there and they know who's good at what and divvy it up and make it happen. Or it could also be done under the superintendent. The main thing that I think that this board would benefit though from is the model where you have a board council that's directly helping the board through all the things that need help at the board level. So when I looked at any district or any organization for that matter, how do you tell when an organization or a district is operating at a very high level? There's two things that I look for. The first is what I call organizational alignment, meaning is everybody in the district kind of rowing in the right direction, or is the board kind of going over here doing one thing and the superintendent's kind of going somewhere else, and then the district, teachers and classrooms are doing something different. To what degree is everybody kind of rowing in the right direction? And the second issue is organizational culture. Every district out there, every organization out there will have all kinds of flowery language that they put about we work together, these are our goals, our objectives, our mission, etc. The question though is to what degree does that actually infused into how the organization actually functions? And when you bring in a board council, that's a critical piece to bringing both of those. It obviously takes everybody working together, but having a board council, somebody that you can call upon anytime, day or night, and say, hey, this is what I'd like to do, this is what's going on, and having that independent, confidential guidance is what helps a board function more effectively, and then also not go too far into other areas. In other words, getting that confidential pushback to say, hey, now you're kind of overstepping, this is the superintendent's job, let him do his job, or other areas. And that's the core value you get when you have somebody that you can call upon and get experience. Now, how can somebody convince you of that in a public setting in a board? I can't answer questions about details of what I've done in the past or things like that. What I'd recommend, and neither can any of the other attorneys for that matter. And I'm sure there's many attorneys you're going to interview that are, in firms that are exceptional in many areas. So my recommendation that I put into the email to the board was select, if you're looking for board counsel, select several firms and just appoint them as board, and essentially get into that engagement where you have an attorney-client relationship with them. And then you can simply ask them for an opinion letter on something. Come in for one of your executive sessions and work with them and see, are they the right fit to work with you and to take this district to the next level, and also to understand how to not just operationally help, but secondarily mitigate risks. Because every decision, there's no yes or no. And this is what I think is critical about the lawyer's role. It's to crystallize the options and then also the risk of those options. In other words, yeah, you can do this, but this is another, particularly when it comes to the threats of litigation, lawsuits, or we have this scenario with a teacher and this and that, or whatever it is, to have your options presented, or policy issues where it's like, well, we have this policy. Well, you can do that, but you could also do this, and these are the risk, of this and this. Now, from a legal perspective, the policy side of whether it's a good decision or bad decision from an educational side of things, that's always the superintendent's role, and the conversation between the superintendent and the board. So from the legal side, you come in and say, these are your legal options, and then these are the mechanics of how to work, to maximize the best outcome of the conversation of developing policy that occurs between the two sides, which is the board and the superintendent. So I kind of wanted to leave it, those are sort of high level, for what I can do in a public session in this kind of setting. My recommendation is pick a few people, engage them. If I'm one of them, happy to help. And then if at an hourly rate we decide that, hey, this is working well and I'm adding a lot of value to how you guys operate and how this district operates, we can discuss a more longer term relationship and, or anything else. Now, but in terms of today making a presentation as to I'm the best person or our firm is the best firm to start doing something in 2025, that's something I don't think you're going to get the best value for your, I don't think you're going to get the best outcome that you think you're going to get by going through selecting a legal process in that way, or legal firms by doing it in that manner. So I kind of want to stop there, open it up, see if there's any questions. And go from there.
Well, you answered one of the questions I had was how do you feel working alongside another firm? But I did have another question. So tell me what you know about our district.
Well, it's about the quarter of the size of the district of Southwestern City School District. I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time analyzing the history in terms of, and that's one of the things, there would be sort of a learning curve of if somebody's coming in to help the board, there's going to be a learning curve involved in that, of talking to the board members, understand where the history of what's been going on. I haven't spent that time up to this point. I have many other things going on all at the same time. And obviously that would be one of the things we'd be sitting down. That's where the attorney-client relationship needs to start. Because the problem is let's say there is no attorney-client relationship. I call up a board member and say this or several or whatnot. Anything that's shared there's not attorney-client privilege, and any emails back and forth are all subject to public records. And that's not a good way to get really at what's the bottom line of what somebody wants or what they're trying to accomplish or what even the problem is, so that you can come in and add value, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. So could you also tell me what experience you have in policy writing for school districts?
Well, I've been working with policy writing for school districts. I've been working at the district level with Southwest. It's been 6 months or so since the beginning of the year with that district. I've been working at the school level I've had many schools for I've had, because as I have a private practice, so I've been running for 15 years, and I have many schools as individual schools that I've been helping their boards with all kinds of policy issues, HR issues, all, they're charter schools, all, that kind of thing. But so I can, so that kind of the formal work. Behind the scenes, I've worked on a lot of different things, policy matters within helping school board members, but it hasn't been in a formal capacity. It's been an informal capacity. I also have, work informally on State House level stuff. I have a lot of relationships and friends up there as well. And, so there's a lot of things that happens formally and informally, and I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Also, do you work with any other districts that have multiple firms?
Well, yeah, I don't think most districts have used different firms for different purposes. Some districts, particularly if they're smaller, they kind of say, okay, this is the one firm and we're kind of should focus on that. But if they have something very specific that pops up that needs specialized experience, they might bring in a different firm specifically for that problem or that issue. So that's kind of where it becomes to what is the problem you're trying to solve. If right now the board in its operation and function says, hey, we have 5 policies, we want to, the pros and cons or some ideas or whatever, then you engage a couple of firms, get their opinion, get an opinion letter saying this is how I would do it, this is what I'd recommend, that sort of thing. If you're trying to solve other problems on a more day-to-day function, if the question is, for example, on tax issues, and we're trying to find, most of the time, if you're a smaller district, you're just going to pick one firm and they're going to handle all of those kind of things. But for each of those areas, there's ways of doing it more efficiently and more and at a cost savings. But that requires conversation that doesn't happen in a public setting like this, if that makes sense.
All right. What would you say your number one, what your number one strength is, or your specialty?
Well, I would say my specialty is helping boards with board governance issues, as well as it's difficult because I can't go into all the things I've done in the past because of attorney-client privilege. That's one of the issues. Mm-hmm. But in general, not very many lawyers out there will come with that combination of knowing what it really takes to be an elected official and all the dynamics that work in a board for a board to function effectively, as well as understanding the whole pipeline of issues that come from there on down, so that how do we bring all that into alignment? How can a lawyer coming in being able to help the board get all that into alignment? So I think we've done really well in Southwestern City School District, and we've done a lot of, and you can call, obviously, and talk to folks and see, and I believe we can help you guys, depending on the capacity and depending on the kind of relationship and role that you're looking for, basically.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question?
Are you following the Groveport Madison School Board lawsuit issue?
Groveport Madison. I'm sorry. Can you just give me a hint of the so many lawsuits out there I'm paying attention to?
I believe what's going on is 2 school board members are suing the other 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been involved in different, again, if you see a problem, there's 1,000 failures that happened way before to try to avert those kind of things from even getting that far. So I've been involved in many board fights, many board disputes and things like that, and some that have gone to litigation. But the goal is always to, pull things back, get people back on center. Because at the end of the day, what are we all here for? Well, we're here for the kids. Okay, well, how do we get the gears turning and get all the emotion and the egos out of the way and say, okay, what is going to move the ball forward? Where are the compromises? Where are the options? Get people talking, and that's what is so important about that private space of the attorney-client privilege, is you can have those conversations and figure out what the real issues are and untangle the knots that prevent people from working together, and a lot of times it just, people don't know how to, Robert's Rules of Order, they've not been really trained in it. They don't know how to mechanically express what they're trying to do in a healthy, positive manner for the organization. So it's a matter of working with them through those problems so that you end up, never going that far down that road. But unfortunately, obviously, we have a society that's, nobody wants to listen to anybody, everybody's fighting with everybody all the time, and employs lawyers. And I think the goal of a lawyer, in my view, is to put ourselves out of business to some degree, which is how do we untangle things and get things organized in such a way that things are functioning enough that we're not needed very much. And that's another element to this. I think that there would be an initial bit of help kind of getting a bunch of things in alignment and operating at a higher level. And then after that, it would be much less need unless you had some kind of, thing that popped up, which happens in school districts. I mean, as every big district, always there's things happening and problems occur, and you need sometimes to call somebody to say, hey, how do we handle this in an effective manner? And again, from my view, everything has to go back and address those two elements, which is organizational alignment and organizational culture. For instance, if you as an organization essentially turned a blind eye, you've got a problem, and instead of addressing it right away, you want to, well, this is a good person, and we don't want to do something, let's let it go, or if those things are not, that all those kind of very fact sensitive and very interperson sensitive, you need to have a firm and a lawyers working with you that understand the nuances, the subtleties of how to deal with those problems. It's not always about risk mitigation. I mean, oftentimes that's what it is. We're here to try to reduce the liability. But the more important issue, slightly more important issue, is also the whole issue of organizational culture in terms of, are we creating a culture where there's accountability? Are we creating a culture where everybody's rowing in the right direction, and we hold people accountable if they're doing the wrong thing? But at the same time, if somebody's making a mistake, that's are they redeemable? That how to sort of be able to triage those issues, and help staff, because it's a team sport. This is not a one-man show in any district and any law firm. It's always people working together, and it's just, do you have the right team of people? Do you have the right lawyer working with the board? And all of this stuff, working together to create the better outcome that takes of everybody working together. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
So what you laid out was, we need to basically hire inside counsel, several firms,
Well,
and then
there's several ways to do it.
then you can talk in confidence. But I don't think that allows us under 121.22 to go into exec to have that discussion.
It depends on the topic, right? So, for instance, if you want a policy, like let's say you engage an attorney and you say, we want a legal opinion, we have that we want to do this or that with policy. Give us a written opinion, right? That written opinion can be presented to the board as attorney-client privilege. It's not a public document. The board, obviously, if the board wants to discuss policy, a policy choice, they have to do it in an open session. But to have that attorney-client, or even a phone call up and say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation about this opinion letter you gave us about this policy or that policy. Is it good or bad? Is it, that's the interaction that would be under the umbrella of attorney-client privilege. And what I was recommending is, if you adopt the policy that other districts have, including Southwestern, and I emailed it to you, which clarifies the role of school counsel. Now, you said a different word, which is in-house counsel. That's a whole nother ball of wax. Yes, you can hire an internal person to be your internal attorney. That's another way to do it. There's more than one way to do this. But that would be basically putting out, instead of something like what you've done in RFP, it would basically be creating a position of in-house counsel, and then have that in-house counsel have the ability to come to you and say, hey, this is beyond my expertise. I need to bring in some other firm to handle some piece, but you have an in-house attorney. That is another model. You can do it that way. I'm simply saying, if you're looking for help, it depends on what problem you're trying to solve and where you're trying to go. If you're looking for board counsel, meaning somebody who's helping and working with the board to help the board function better, more efficiently, more effectively, then I would recommend appointing maybe one or several that you can then, and then it's a matter of how you interact with them. And the way we've done it in other districts and in other circumstances is that basically board members can call to have attorney-client conversations about what they were trying to do, why, and whatever, procedure questions, things like that, or email those questions or whatever. But that response, in other words, an opinion letter, is then shared with the whole board, so everybody has the benefit. Now, once you have that, let's say you have an opinion letter from an attorney that says, this and this and this is how I would structure this policy from a legal perspective, okay? At that point, that's attorney-client privilege. It can only be waived by a vote of the board. So if the board wants to come in and say, hey, we want this opinion letter to be public on whatever the topic is, you can then vote to make that opinion letter a public document, because the board controls the privilege, not an individual board member. Does that help? Make sense?
Yeah.
I hope I didn't make it confusing.
I probably should have used general counsel instead of inside counsel,
Correct.
okay?
Right. I would say that if you had general counsel that worked with the board, that general counsel can then say, okay, we have a problem, a very specific litigation issue involving our whatever, HVAC or mold or whatever, or some contract with some firm, whatever it is, for solar panels, and I don't want to handle this or it's beyond my scope, then they can bring in a outside firm to handle that one area. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I thought that's what we were choosing, was general counsel.
Well, it was not clear from the RFP what you're trying to, the goal you're trying to accomplish.
I thought it stated general counsel.
But, yes. But at the same time, it said a lot of other things that made it sort of, are you wanting general counsel for the board? Or are you talking about, because you can have general counsel that works under the superintendent. The question is, does the board want to be working on a more regular basis with a counsel that's helping to lead your legal issues for the district? Or are you looking to have the superintendent basically hire some firm, it could be general firm, that handles the legal issues for the district, but doesn't necessarily interact with the board on a regular basis? Does that make sense as a distinction?
It should, because that's pretty much what's been going on for 27 years.
Exactly. So if you're trying to change that to a different model, it's totally cool. It's good. But the way to do that, and the better way to do it, in my view, rather than trying to see in a public session where it's difficult to talk about things in this way, is to engage several or more than one, and then ask them to give you a letter of opinion or interact with them on a personal level, and have a thing where you see what is it you're trying, see how they work, how it works together. Does it all gel? Because you want the right individual lawyer or firm that's going to work really well with the board. And you're not going to get that from just simply a public meeting and listening to 9, 10 firms and say, okay, this is the one that's unlikely.
Okay.
Okay, I think that sums it up.